All right. Thank you all for joining me today. My name is Renee Angela Mock. The topic of today's session is becoming a better mentor, strategies to be there for young people, specifically the chapter on making room for fun and play. I have a lot planned for us, so I want to jump in, but I appreciate you all being here and taking time to learn something new during what feels like a very busy kickoff to the year, to say the least. So appreciate you all being here. I'm going to drop one last link to download WebEx while we get started, and we'll keep it moving. Okay, so if you're not familiar, we are Mentor Maryland, DC. That is who is putting on this training for you today. We are an affiliate of Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership. Specifically in this region, we were launched in 2018, but there's about 24 affiliates across the US working to ensure that there is enough mentoring and quality mentoring for all young people and to close the mentoring gap. So we do that in a lot of ways. We have some advocacy opportunities coming up, right? We're advocating for legislation that supports mentoring and effective mentoring. And we have tons of services to offer you, including these trainings, right? So that looks like a lot of different things. Again, connecting to the National Mentoring Partnership. The National Mentoring Partnership, they host their own trainings. They have their collaborative mentoring webinar series, which I do recommend you get on that newsletter and go to those. They're amazing. But they also host the National Mentoring Summit, which is happening in less than 2 weeks in DC. If you are going to be in the summit, I hope you come to my workshop because I'm also facilitating a workshop there. But it is an amazing opportunity. They help us also during the summit go to Capitol Hill to do some of that advocacy. So that is because of our relationship with the National Mentoring Partnership. So lots of opportunities there if you stay connected with us and them. We also have our no-cost program consulting and technical assistance through the National Mentoring Resource Center. Holler in the chat if you have received TA from us. You'll most often hear us calling it TA, but this is an opportunity to get a certain amount of consulting hours with one of us, with a staff member, or one of our mentoring expert consultants to meet with your program to help develop an area of your programs, whether that's your recruitment, policies and procedures, training, and things like that. That is a no-cost opportunity for you that we really want you to get engaged in. And I will say we have a lot of hours left to offer in this fiscal year for TA, so jump in. Now is the time. Access to the Mentoring Connector. So if you didn't know, it's National Mentoring Month, which we'll talk about in a second, but during National Mentoring Month is when folks are most likely to Google how to become a mentor. And when they Google that, the Mentoring Connector is likely to pop up. The Mentoring Connector is the national database of mentoring programs and mentoring opportunities. So folks can go to the Mentoring Connector, search the area. So we manage the regional database here for Maryland and DC, and mentors can go search their zip code, what kind of mentoring they're looking for, and your program may pop up and they can apply directly to your program. So if you're not already in the Mentoring Connector, get in there. And then we do things like these trainings. Let us know in the chat if you've been to any of our roundtables. We do those as well. Yes, we are recording and everyone will get access to the slides, so no worries about that. But the point of the story is we have a lot to offer you, most of which is free. So please keep in touch with us, and we appreciate you engaging with us in this training as one of those opportunities, right? Yeah, Tabu, tell us about those roundtables. But yes, so we're going to jump in now into our topic for the day and just some general logistics. So as you see, we are in the virtual space and we are using a new platform, WebEx. So we really appreciate your patience in trying a new platform with us. Zoom out here, doing too much has not been working for us. So we are in WebEx today and we appreciate that. And we appreciate your space and grace in this virtual space. We have tested as many things in advance so things can go smoothly. But so if WebEx is new to you, at the bottom of your screen, you should see this little toolbar where you can mute yourself, unmute yourself, start and stop your video, which there will be times where I'm going to ask for videos on. This little hand, you can raise your hand, you can have an emoji reaction, and then you can press those 3 buttons for some more options as well. In the bottom right of your screen, you should see some three buttons where you can access apps. So if you go to, actually, I don't know if I have the apps up right now because I want to turn on. We will get to that in a little bit. But excuse me, you can see who else is here, all your friends here, give them a shout out, and then you can send them a direct message in the chat. When you go to the chat, at the very top, not pictured in this little thing here, but the top you can do message everyone or send a direct message. You can send a direct message to me if needed. But send an emoji, send a GIF, put it in the chat right now. Let me see that y'all know how to use it. And I know that you have because you've been saying hi, but that is there for you and to share things. So please keep our chat lively. And then we're also going to use something called Slido today, some different polls and things like that. It is quite easy. So the directions on how to log in will be on every slide, but when you go, nice. Seeing some gifts. When you go to Slido, you will see this at the top of the website. It'll say joining as a participant, which you are. You'll be given a code. It's all quite easy. After that, then you'll see this where it says welcome. You're in the right place, and you'll be given the passcode, which again, anytime we're interacting with Slido, that login information will be on the screen so you can see. But we want to make sure that you can just have an idea of like what you'll be looking for so we can keep it moving. But yeah, excited. I love seeing gifts in the chat. It's really fun. Thanks, guys. Cool. So if you've ever been in with a training with us, we do have our community standards. I don't want to spend too much time here, as I'm sure you've seen them many times, but our goal is to be open to all, to share openly, to be positive with our assumptions, never be afraid to ask questions. Please, no matter what your role here today, say be a host. We'll be in breakout spaces with each other. We want everyone to feel invited, and it's not just anytime we're in smaller spaces with each other, we're inviting everyone into a new space, right? So you'll be a host in a breakout room in a way. And we want everyone to have a good time, especially considering today's training topic. So keep that in mind. This will be an interactive training for learning. We're going to play some games as well. So we appreciate your interactions in the chat. Again, we will ask for some video on a little bit later, but our goal always in these spaces is to be supportive and educational and to have fun. And your full self is absolutely welcome. So we appreciate you being here. I'm going to talk quickly about National Mentoring Month. It's National Mentoring Month. Get lit. It's National Mentoring Month. Celebrates the positive role mentors have played in the lives of young people and promotes promotes the role of mentorship in helping to create more equitable schools, communities, workplaces. We have notable national partners and local partners for National Mentoring Month, including all the Mentor affiliates, of course, but Mentor recognizes January as National Mentoring Month. So this is a message from Jermaine Myrie, the CEO of Mentor, and he says, National Mentoring Time is a time to set course for personal impact we want to make in the days and months ahead. We hope that neighbors, friends, caregivers, and those who simply care will choose to share their time and wisdom with young people and communities nationwide. This is important because we know that there's no such thing as other people's children. So let this month be the start of your investment in every child, every young person in real and impactful ways, and let us start with being a mentor. So we appreciate you celebrating National Mentoring Month by being here to talk about our topic today, but we hope you will celebrate in your communities, at your mentoring programs, in your neighborhoods. So be mindful that now is the time to celebrate the great work that you're doing, that your mentors are doing, and that anybody involved in mentoring relationships. So we're really excited that it's our favorite time of year. And apologies if you hear my dog barking in the background. Okay, so today, like I mentioned, we are talking about one of the chapters of the Becoming a Better Mentor resource. So Becoming a Better Mentor was the first research-backed resource made by Mentor National that was specifically guided towards mentors. So typically, they are creating resources and research for mentoring programs for practitioners and things like that, but this is speaking directly to mentors. But as we know, the people who work at mentoring programs also are mentors, right? So I've dropped the link there. There's 12 chapters to this very amazing resource. But today we're going to talk about chapter 3, making room for fun and play. And this was written by Michael Karcher, who is a researcher at the University of Texas, San Antonio. So, why mentors may need a refresher, on something so basic as having fun or being playful. And that is because, we are grown-ups, right? You are in charge. You are the adult in the room. You've mentored into mentoring relationships either, through a natural connection or being part of a program because you know the stakes for the youth you mentor are high, right? And you can make a big difference in your mentor's life if you do it right. We know that you take mentoring seriously, but most adults struggle to retain and regain and re-engage their playful selves. And that's why we're reviewing it today. So what we know about making for fun and play is that by centering joyful experiences and mentoring relationships, mentors can form stronger and more meaningful connections with their mentees, which I know is for those of you who are a part of programs, that is what you're looking for and looking to do. Okay, so we are going to engage in our first Slido today. So you will want to go to slido.com and you will want to keep that tab open because it will automatically change in every poll that we go through. But you'll go to slido.com, you will enter that code BBM Fun Play. I believe it's case sensitive. Use the passcode NMM, and then you are going to answer this question. What game or activity was your absolute favorite when you were a kid? Take some time, give an answer or two, and then we will see our answers on the screen. What game or activity was your absolute favorite when you were a kid? Yeah, if you can try to answer those questions into Slido, but I appreciate the chat. Red Rover, Nintendo 64, video games. The code is on the screen. It's BBM Fun Play is the code. Passcode is NMM. Whoa, jump roping, Uno, freeze tag, Monopoly. Oh, I love a fellow Monopoly lover. There are so few of us. Playing outside. Playing Boggle with my mom. She never let me win. That's rough. Ooh, pardon me. Dodgeball, capture the flag, pretend, climbing trees. Pop Tropica. Right in the chat, I want to hear about what that is. Foursquare, I want to hear about sardines too. What is that? Risk, anything crafty. Friendship bracelet, beads, clay, painting. Risk is real. Jump rope and jacks. Love that. I hope you saw the jacks in our marketing for this. Some more in the chat. Double dodge, backgammon, Candyland. Nintendo, riding, playing Uno. Uno's so popular. Scatterball. Speed and Sega, Pokemon, Jacks, breakdancing, rapping, dodgeball, Scrabble, spades, jump ropes. Awesome. Foursquare, Mancala. I just recently got back into Mancala, guys. It's awesome. Building forts, soccer and kickball, bike horseback riding, more Mancala. Which, guys, I think Mancala is making a comeback. I think it's really fun as an adult. Playing with Barbies and ponies. Sledding is a season. Go-karts. Connect 4. All right, I'll let these last two folks get in and then Legos. Just being outside, playing soccer. All right, awesome. Thank you to everybody who wrote in. And then your screen should switch to now answering this question. And this is going to be a word cloud, so let's enter one word. When you were playing your absolute favorite game as a kid, you're having the most fun of your time of your life because you're playing your favorite game. How did it make you feel? So for those just coming in, we're answering our questions at slido.com. The how-to is on the screen. Free. Love to see that. So again, a word cloud, the biggest words are those with the most answers. Love to, that's so interesting. Happy, carefree, loved. Euphoric, right? That euphoric of just like being a kid, playing outside. Just like so many memories of being in my backyard with my neighbor friends and things like that. Awesome. Energized, joyful. I would love to hear, and write this in the chat. When you say free, or feel free to come off mute as well, what is so special about that feeling, the feeling of being free? Especially now that we're doing this, we're looking back, right? What is so special about that feeling of feeling free? Free of worries, right? It feels like the opposite of being an adult, right? Kind of. Powerful, right? No expectations, all that room to play in, right? When you are free, there's even more room to play and find joy. And we're going to talk about finding joy a lot. I wasn't about anything else but having fun and being in the moment, not having to get permission. Yes, we're going to talk a lot about that, right? Because let's think about young people's typical relationships with adults, free of stress, getting to do something you love, and escape from a tough reality, limitless. Yeah, and I feel when we think about why it's hard for adults to re-engage, it's because we come to understand and know more and more limits as we age, right? Great. Love. Thank you guys so much for participating. Great answers, really setting us up for what we're going to talk about. Again, when I send out the slides, I'll also export these so we can remember all of our great ideas. But yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate your thoughts there. And I hope this is getting your mind moving, right? About this topic, your memories and experiences of it, and then how we can bring that to our young people. Amber, free of judgments. Yeah, that is real. So, the author of this chapter and his mentor reviewed, kind of mentioned that this is a research back document, right? So, this author and his mentor reviewed 30 years of youth mentoring research to determine what made mentoring most effective across different groups of youth and settings. And they proposed this framework. It included four core types of mentoring activities, those being, and in a particular order, playing, talking, learning, and doing. So their research suggested that the strongest mentoring relationships reflected a balance of these four types of interactions, the order being intentional, the most important at the top, playing, talking, learning, and doing. Being playful, again, from the review of the research, determined to be a critical tool in a mentor's relationship building toolkit. Even if they were a part of a mentoring program that was more goal directed or was very structured, play was determined to be the most critical tool. The capacity to be playful is tool number one. So for most of us, for most adults, it is the talking, learning, and doing that reflects the usual, familiar, and comfortable roles that characterize how adults interact with young people most of the time, right? In very few of those common roles that adults play in youth lives, does fun, doing something just for the fun of it, factor as a central objective. And that's why if this is infused into a mentoring relationship, it makes that relationship unique and special to the young person. Can I have someone read this quote on the screen for us? Just feel free to come off mute and read it.
A child who does not play is not a child, but the man who doesn't play has lost forever. The child who lived in him and who he will miss terribly.
Yes, thank you so much for reading.
You're
So yeah,
welcome.
let that sit with you for a second, right? Well, if you read this chapter, which you can do anytime again on the website that I shared earlier, that you'll see a lot that they say play is the work of children, right? A child's capacity to play is what makes a child a child. You may have interacted with children who do not have a lot of opportunity and access to play because of whatever may have happened in their life or the circumstances of their life, and those children may be very serious or unchildlike, right? Children with old souls, right? The old soul kind of trope is often to describe a child who is not playful. And what we're saying here is that the ability and the capacity for play is what makes children children, and that as adults, it is really important for us to be in touch with play, with our inner child, or else we're really going to be, missing out, to put it quite simply. So when we say making room for fun and play, what do we really mean? Being a playful mentor means expressing your joy when you meet with your mentee. So there are a lot of ways to define play and describe the experience of having fun. But for this chapter, it'll be most helpful if we focus on two elements of this tool, which are you experiencing joy and then you expressing that joy to your mentee. So keep that in mind. Find joy in your mentee's engagement in activities. So first you can, again, so whether that activity reflects your mentee's playing, sharing, learning, or doing something, you finding joy just in your mentee's engagement of it is really important. That's that joy aspect. And then sharing something that brings you joy with your mentee. So, pardon me. What brings you joy, sharing that with your mentee and building a connection there can be really important when we think about making room for fun and play. And then sharing something personally meaningful and pleasurable in your life with your mentee. So it's an important concept that we will unpack a little bit later about how to do this, but whichever of these you may do when we think about making room for fun and play, the result should be the same, a genuine expression of joy in the context of the time spent with your mentee that generates a smile on your face and, ideally your mentee's face too. Playful mentoring can happen in big ways, such as, choosing something fun to do during your time together, or playful mentoring can occur in smaller, unplanned ways, right? Like through spontaneous sharing of funny stories or playful, digression from a goal-oriented task, which we'll talk more about. Play is an activity that can be both in the moment or planned, as well as youth-oriented or mentor-generated, which again, we'll talk more about. However, it has no specific tie-in to adult values necessarily or future-oriented goals. That's what makes it particularly special to youth and uncommon in the standard repertoire of many adult-youth relationships, right? Adults are always setting and implementing expectations of young people, which is cutting out room for play. And again, that's not to say that we should not have expectations of young people or look to the future or be goal-oriented, right? But again, when we saw with the 4 core types of mentoring, there has to be room for play if we want to have effective mentoring relationships. So if you open up your Slido again, I'm going to ask you to answer this poll, which is simply, do you have enough room for fun and play in your mentoring relationships? And I'll give time for folks to answer. Do you feel you have enough room for fun and play in your mentoring relationships? We got over 100 of us on the call. Let's get at least half of us in the poll here because it seems we're becoming more split as more people answer. Or it's changing. Andrew says, to be fair, I feel like there can always be more, which I guess I could have put that as an answer. That's a good point. All right, we got about half of us in the poll. Feel free to keep answering if you haven't yet. I'll check in on our numbers before we move from this slide. But what we know, again, from the research is that almost universally, effective mentors do one essential thing. They communicate nearly every time they meet with their mentee, their experience of joy when they are in the presence of the mentee, right? So for the master mentor, for the mentor who's an expert and who has been in the game a long time, expressions of joy happen during fun activities as well as in serious interactions. And you'll know you're on your way to mastering the art of being a playful mentor, and you'll recognize the moments you will have successfully incorporated play, fun, and joyful interaction into your mentoring every time you become aware that your mentee sees a smile on your face. So there is this awareness piece, right, of your own joy, because it's not just that we're keeping this joy for ourselves, it's that this building the bridge between your joy and your mentee through outwardly expressing it, either verbally or, by a smile, of course, that you're doing that when you spend time with your mentee. So it looks like, and this poll should remain open until we move to the next one, which won't be till towards the end, that we're almost kind of split. About half is saying yes, definitely, which I love to hear. If you answered yes, can you let us know what program you're at? I would love to hear about programs that feel like they are doing it right and have room for fun and play. A little bit less than half say kind of there could be more, and then there's 7% that say definitely not, which, yeah, I definitely hope to enjoy it. If you answered yes, let us know in the chat what program you're mentoring with, or if you're not mentoring with a program, so we can see who out there feels like they're getting in enough fun and play. But thank you and we will also save the chat again with the slides and everything else. So yes, thank you for sharing. And again, hopefully by the end of today, we'll have a better idea of how to make more room for fun and play. But like with all of the Becoming a Better Mentor chapters, we have this question, why? Why is this important? Why was this so important, making room for fun and play, that we need to spend time on it? So Lawrence Cohen wrote, for adults, play means leisure, but for children, play is more like their job. Play is also children's main way of communicating, of experimenting, and of learning. So play is important for the future and makes it essential for mentoring relationships. So let's get specific as to why. Play can serve to equalize the power imbalance between mentees and their mentors. So pulling mentors into more of this, friend zone, right? Playing gives young people a chance to win, succeed, and excel relative to their mentor, which again are kind of uncommon in a youth's typical interactions with adults, which make it unique for the mentoring experience. There is always a power dynamic between adults and young people. It is just the nature of how our society is structured. If you're interested in a training on adultism, I would love to hear about that, because this adultism is a real thing. In general, our society values the input experiences of adults more than young people. So play can help serve as a kind of equalizer in that way. Playful interactions can form bridges that transcend differences and mistrust. So this can be particularly true when there are differences in the personal characteristics of mentors and their mentees, whether that's, demographics, age, sex, race, or social. But play can serve as the ultimate leveler and allow commonality to be found in those playful interactions. So expressions of joy and pleasure in spending time with another person reveal that two people are not boundaried, are not necessarily separated by their differences, right? We can make that connection, and play can be that way to transcend those differences, and is, what we're finding from the research, a really good way to do that. So, and then when there may be failures, right? So failures when trying to inject humor into a mentor match can provide opportunities to deepen the relationship and build trust. So when a mentor's joke or effort to introduce a game into a match fails or falls flat, or worse, there could be an experience of harm, mentors have an opportunity to provide a reparative response. So carefully tuning in to whether attempts at humor or fun are working for your mentee provide a unique way for you to learn about your mentee and respond empathically. So, right, it doesn't mean that this is, again, nothing about being a mentor, I feel, is naturally necessarily easy, right? And there will be times where we fail. So in the context of play, when those things aren't working, it's an opportunity for you to put some more thought and effort into it, because again, from what we know, children are wired to play. It is their job, it is their work. So what's an opportunity for us to do some reflection and to respond empathically to help build, again, that bridge. Playful mentoring interactions can build a safe haven at times when the nature of a planned activity brings up the mentee's insecurities or anxieties. So a playful approach by the mentor can communicate the mentor's investment in the mentee and a willingness to be vulnerable and not so serious, right? It communicates a willingness for the mentor to join the mentee in the anxiety or fear that an activity may evoke, right? Trying something new, and thereby help diffuse the mentee's fears, making the youth more open to taking risks and being vulnerable. So again, there's a lot of modeling in a way as well, that if you're going to play something new or try something new, that the mentor is in it with the mentee. Losing oneself through complete engagement in an activity is a form of play. So this is what, it's a powerful experience to be lost in play, which I think we saw when we reflected on what that feeling of being lost in play was when we did that poll a few slides ago. So this experience of flow, or the feeling of being fully engrossed in an activity, so that you may lose track of time or you feeling your process are fully engaged, experiencing that flow is linked with many positive outcomes for youth. The most important of which is that it serves as a source of motivation and the desire to learn new skills in pursuit of new chances to experience that flow state. And likely you have felt this flow state, right? Even as an adult doing some adult things. But for young people, when they get into that experience, which can happen through play, it is a bit motivating for them. And then when you or adults, right, express joy in response to seeing the mentee in deep in play or lost in a state of purposeful flow, the mirroring back of the youth's playful joy can be healing and reparative. And then lastly, infusing play into structured, formal, and goal-directed mentoring pays dividends to both mentors and the youth they work with. So like many aspects of mentoring that you know already, is that it is bi-directional, and the mentor is getting benefits from mentoring, and the same is with play. So some youth may need time having fun and developing trust in a mentoring relationship before any targeted or strategic supports will even be heard or received by the mentee. So research regularly finds that even for very goal-directed programs, which are valid and great, the most powerful indicator of longer and stronger relationships is the extent to which the matches in those programs engage in play. So infusing fun into mentoring efforts or programs that are instructionally focused or rely on information-rich mentoring activities can help the youth feel partnered with, valued, and important. Why? Why is that, right? At a very basic level, it gives mentees the message that they are more important than the task at hand, which I think for us at mentoring programs, I don't want to say we're ever not centering the youth, but especially for program leaders, right? We are beholden to funders, to people looking for outcomes and things like that, that we're focusing on that goal. And when we infuse play, even in those programs that have, again, a structured curriculum, very specific goals they're working for, youth want to know that you are there specifically for them, right? That the most important thing in your relationship with them is not that, goal or whatever at the end of the program, right? But that you are there for them as a person, person to person, mentor to mentee. So thank you for everyone who shared your playful programs in the chat. I hope some of this information is starting to resonate with you. But now we are going to play a game. And so let's get into that. And I'm sure that you have played a game like this, right? Have you ever? So what we're going to do is we are going to break into breakout rooms. I'm going to give you guys how many? I'm trying to do some quick math. I'm going to put between 7 and 9 people in each room. Okay, yeah. We'll do 7 to 10 people in each room. I'll give you guys about 4 to 5 minutes just to introduce yourselves, name, pronouns, where you work, share a fun fact if you want. But I'll give you guys some front time on the front end to introduce yourself to the folks in the group. The essence of this game is that cameras need to be on. So I'm going to ask you to turn your cameras on now as I transition into giving the rest of the instructions. I know some of you are on your phones, so you can't, that's fine, but turn on your cameras now, as that will be essential to purpose of the game. But when you get into your breakout room, you introduce yourselves. Again, I'll give you 4 to 5 minutes to do that. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to send a yes or no, have you ever question to your breakout room. And it should look like this. It'll say broadcast message, it'll pop up in the middle of your screen, and then it'll say from me, and then the question will be there. If you, again, it should look like this. If you're in the web version, it might not pop up. So when you're doing your introductions, select one person from your group who's in the app to read the question to the group. Then, if the answer is yes, raise your hand so the group can see. If the answer for you is no, then shake your head. We want to be very obvious to communicate. So after each question is asked, your group will have a minute to react or discuss your answers, and then the next question will be asked and the cycle will repeat. Are these instructions clear? Okay, I'm gonna pause recording. Okay, so how did that go? I got some questions in the chat. I know we were trying out something new. How did it go? What did you notice about going through the Have You Ever game with the folks in your breakout room? Feel free to let me know in the chat, raise your hand, come off mute. I want to hear about how that went.
I think it went
Paul?
well.
Yeah. And Christian's like, once everybody warmed up, we were able to be more open. Want to hear different experiences. Christian, not easy with strangers. Yeah, take some information from that. Wanted to hear more about people's stories. Yeah. Paul, did you want to share?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, just answering the questions, and it was kind of like I was reminding myself of, oh yeah, I did this, and then all of a sudden the positive feelings associated with those experiences started coming back, and I kind of, despite the fact that I was telling strangers,
Yeah.
I felt happy. It felt good to be able to share.
Yeah, and such a good point, Paul. And again, like how this relates to mentoring and what we've been talking about is right connecting with those positive feelings that in this situation the questions generated, and then communicating that to the other folks, which in this situation you were forcibly kind of doing that as was the nature of the game. But when those kind of moments can happen naturally in a conversation and a mentoring relationship, that we are communicating, that positivity, that joy to our mentees. For instance, yeah, I sensed happiness in other people's voices and when people were sharing. Great. Yeah. So again, when we come back to kind of the essence of what we're focusing on is finding joy. So finding joy in the moment, in the game, etc. And then also communicating out. Trisha, thank you for being here. Shout out to Trisha's group. Yeah, so again, keeping that in mind, connecting with your own positive feelings and joy and communicating that out, which I'm glad that game allowed us to do it. Yes, thank you guys so much for participating. And we are going to talk a little bit more about that how piece. How can we incorporate, what are the ways to play in mentoring, right? So there's many ways, of course. And again, this isn't necessarily today isn't necessarily about defining all of the ways, and no way would this be an exhaustive list, but to give us ideas. So play as a backdrop for conversation. So you may have heard of this idea of parallel play. So what we found from research is getting mentors and youth of all ages. We can see the value of engaging in parallel play, where both the mentor and mentee are doing something creative, but independently. And then that is the backdrop to conversations about other things. So something like drawing, painting, building something together can provide a way to normalize conversations that might otherwise feel awkward or uncomfortable, or if done without an accompanying activity. So the kind of independent activities that you can do side by side become a backdrop for rapport building conversations. So play as context to communicate appreciation of the mentee's focused engagement. So watching your mentee play. So for example, they're showing you their skills in a video game or generating some other, or I'm sorry, demonstrating some other skill they've learned can be valuable for your relationship. It can be a way for young people to communicate their competence. It can be very validating for them. And a young person can be appreciated on their own terms, right? When an adult or older peer watches them play or perform successfully at something that is meaningful to them. And then again, we want to be mindful to be explicit in our communication of your pleasure in their engagement. Yeah, Aaron, great example for the last one in the chat. Tossing a ball and answering questions. So right, when we think about like toddlers who are like, Mom, look at me do this thing, look at me jump over this thing, right? It's that kind of thing that we can make space for our mentees to do with us, give them that acknowledgement and validation. And that's really meaningful for them. And again, we know that from their earliest of age, young people are asking of that for adults. So can we make space to do that in our mentoring relationship? So play as a way to connect, bridge differences, and share experiences that deepen the relationship. So, pardon me. So play can be a simple digression where you communicate to the youth, hey, let me share something with you that you might find interesting. It can be something that, again, has no linear, logical, or obvious role or purpose in sharing other than for you and your mentee to connect. So again, that connection being the most important part, that sharing of joy, and as we already previously talked about, can be a bridge between misunderstandings, differences, and all kinds of things. So. And it can be, a digression. Again, not all play is planned. Sharing funny stories from your own life can make you appear more real, personal, and open in a way that helps forge a connection. So stories that provide a lesson by ending in an unexpected way or show that you did something stupid, right? But that you can laugh at in hindsight are usually well received and help make you less unfamiliar and seem more like them, right? They make you seem more real, more vulnerable, more flawed. And again, much as most youth may view themselves on every day, right? That might be their point of view. And those kind of funny stories can foster connection and mutual sharing of vulnerabilities and often trigger youth to either share their own quote unquote stupidities or to ask adults, real questions about the types of coping strategies they've used in the past. When I'm sure you've heard many times this idea of like why it's important to be authentic. And I've said many times in trainings, right? Like youth want to know that adults make mistakes because they do too. And when you're able to share those kinds of stories in a playful way, or it maybe literally is a funny story, it can be really disarming in that way and make space for a youth to try to find connection, to feel comfortable enough to ask for help, to be askable if you were at our last Askable Adult training, right? So that can be a way to, again, build that connection there. Bringing a playful stance to a planned mentoring activity that otherwise might seem boring. So we've talked, not that I'm going to say every planned activity is boring, but we talked about, again, in those really structured programs and things like that, or times where it's your role to help your mentee do their homework. I'm never going to glamorize homework. And say, selling homework to young people can be hard, right? So maybe bringing in a competitive stance is enough to make something like, again, doing homework fun. So, right, if you can get 6 in a row correct without missing any, then we'll stop and do something that you want to do. And even in those interactions and negotiations they entail, you likely be smiling and you communicate to your mentee that their feelings have been heard and that their needs are being recognized as important. So, right, if you've ever communicated with a young person who's complaining about their homework, telling them about the value of homework is likely not going to be the way that you're going to sell it to a young person. So how can we infuse play and playful breaks into a structured thing that they have to do that maybe they don't want to do? And we know, again, homework can be important or whatever that might be. Keeping those kind of things in mind. And then we want to be mindful of kind of the contextual considerations for how we're infusing play in our mentoring relationships. So thinking about things like age, right? Play with young children often builds on themes of power, freedom, acceptance, and love, and such play can communicate to you how they make sense of the world, right? You can learn about what a young person, a very young person, their point of view. For adolescents, play can be the undeniable bridge they live on between, fantastic childhood and serious adulthood, can lead adolescents to want to have a foot in both worlds. So in that situation, rule-based and competitive games can offer that kind of playful bridge. And then gender. So it would be a mistake and do mentors a disservice to affirm stereotypes about what types of play are better for girls versus boys. While there may be some research on play preferences for each gender, gender differences are not universal, and we should act as such. And for some mentees, the expectations and prohibitions that have been placed on them by adults in their lives may feel stagnating. So you as a mentor, if you are again open to all kinds of play despite gender, can provide a healing and reparative kind of response for mentees with those experiences. I remember working with an adolescent man, an adolescent Black boy here in Baltimore City, and we, were driving the car and I was trying to find music that he would be interested in. And he said, Miss Renee, I don't like hip hop. And I don't like to tell people because they assume that I do like it. And I was like, okay, well, what? I was like, I don't care. Because I really didn't mind, right? But obviously people had expectations of him and it made him feel some type of way about it and that he couldn't engage in what he really wanted. And it was that he wanted to listen to pop music. And so we did. And we made space for that, right? And then where you are in the mentoring life cycle. So is this a new relationship or a longer term, or you're later on in a relationship? So there is considerable evidence, again, research of the need for a balance of play and work, so to speak, across the mentoring relationship life cycle. So early research on effective relationships in the Big Brothers Big Sisters community-based mentoring program revealed that mentors who build the relationship through play and non-directed conversations, which allowed the mentor and mentee to learn about one another, yielded stronger relationships and better outcomes. Once these relationships were established, again, further on in the relationship, mentors could then more easily begin to focus on more target goals. So mentors who come in not rooted in play, who come in with a fixing approach and from day one are focused on sharing their wisdom on how these could improve their lives, called a prescriptive style, you'd likely hear me talk about before, fared more poorly. So again, if we're in this early stage of a relationship, this could be the most important time to be focusing on infusion play. It's going to open the door to the more serious conversations, life development, life skill building that we're going to do with our young people. Hold on, I want to check how much time we had. Okay, I will give you some time. So I'm going to send you back into groups to answer these questions. So again, we've been reminded of a lot of different kind of feelings that we've had about play and such. And I want us to think about, who, but again, back to our childhood again, who was an adult that played with you, right? How did it make you feel? And what was the impact, on that play with, actually, we'll just give it to the large group discussion. What was the impact of play on your relationship with that adult? So raise your hand, come off mute. If this is triggering a story, please share. We'd love to hear it. But who was an adult who played with you? How did it make you feel? And what was the impact of play on your relationship? Feel free to raise your hand or come off mute.
Sure. Neighbor when I was about 9 years old. I remember he used to he delivered for a comic book store, and I would always want to try to talk to him, but he was kind of always busy. And then after a certain amount of times asking him, he took some time and took me into a truck, showed me the comic books, actually let me pick one out, and I just actually realized through this question that that's one of the reasons why I still like Spider-Man as a character, because that was the first comic book he gave me. So it's kind of a cool story.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so special. And right, that kind of idea that a young person is, asking a lot of questions, and when we make the time, there's that opportunity. I just saw someone raise their hand. If you raise your hand, please go ahead and come off mute. I can't see everyone, but I saw a hand.
So I played with an
Carla.
uncle. I'm sorry, he was an uncle by marriage. At first, I was thinking there was no adult that played with us, but then I remembered him because we played checkers.
Hmm.
How did it make me feel? It made me feel great because I beat him all the time. But he
Okay.
was a sore loser, so he would mess up the board at the end. So the impact made me feel, I guess, competitive. So I like to play with others. I became more competitive, I think, as a result of that.
Yeah. Yeah, so again, we talked about this a little bit earlier, right? The opportunity to feel validated in your skill as a young person, that you were able to do something, that you're able to be an adult at something, which again, in every other area of a young person's life, they're typically told of their gaps, right, between them and adults. But again, that game can really level the playing field and also maybe like influence your values, right? So it made you a little bit more competitive and things like that because they did it well, right? Yeah, any other memories of an adult who played with you, how it made you feel? Who was it? How'd they do it? What was the impact of play on your relationship? Mikhail says, my grandma has the coolest imagination and allowed me to be a kid. Even when my mom would get upset because I was dirty or my clothes didn't match, my grandma wouldn't care. She would say she's just a kid and allowed me that freedom to be who I am. Yeah, so we talked about freedom and feeling free earlier, right? When we were playing something that was important to us. And again, this idea that young people don't have a lot of power. They actually don't necessarily have tons of freedom. Even though we see that now, but they're in school however 8 hours a day it feels like, being told their every move, right? They're constantly getting directions from parents, adults, other authority figures. And while they are more free in a way than adults, right? They have different responsibilities than adults. The spaces need to be intentionally created for them to feel that freedom, right? To feel that freedom of play and joy. Again, joy being the focus of making room for fun and play. And that what we're finding is that adults have to intentionally do that and make that space. And that is through direct communication, making that space and honoring them and communicating that we appreciate the young person playing, being engaged, and being themselves. Leslie says, my dad would play soccer and I felt happy and free. The impact it had on me is that it brought me closer to him, even though we barely talk anymore. Yeah, right. Again, kind of that idea of the importance of play to continue to build a bridge in a relationship, and that opportunity to get close over the course of playing a game and having fun. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, can I have someone read the first one here? So we're getting towards wrapping up. We're going to have one more breakout for you guys to discuss, but can I have somebody read the first line?
Being a playful mentor means expressing your joy when you meet your mentee.
Thank you. Can somebody read the second line?
Playful mentoring can happen in big ways, such as by choosing something fun to do during your time together, or playful mentoring can occur in smaller, unplanned ways, like through spontaneous sharing or funny stories with each other, or playful momentary discretion from a more goal-oriented task.
Thank you. Then can someone read the last?
Mentors empower young people, embolden them, encourage them, and respect them by being playful, because youth knows that's their zone, not yours.
Great, thank you. So to wrap up, I want us to give us time to reconnect with our group so you can have a little bit more conversation. But I want you to answer this question, which is, how will you incorporate fun and play into your relationship? So we've heard some great stories. We're reflecting on adults who did it well. A lot of us do, about half of us do feel like we do have enough room for fun and play. But how can we be either more intentional about it if we have that space for fun and play? But if not, how can we make space for it? And what will you do? And so I'm going to open those rooms right now if we all discuss for about, I'm going to say 7 minutes. And then we will come back together. Pause recording again. Thank you so much, everybody. I would love to hear about, yeah, what did you talk about? What did you find out? How you incorporate fun and play into your mentoring relationships? Does anybody share any good ideas? And then this kind of added question, how will you know that you were successful at doing that? So feel free to come off of mute, raise your hand, drop a note in the chat. How will you incorporate fun and play into your mentoring relationships?
The way I do it is I'll pick an activity first, and I'll see, like, I think that probably is highly engaging for them on there, and then I'll see if they engage without me needing to prompt them for certain things. And then, like, right now, currently with the ball tossing activity, I initially had one girl who was hesitant about it, but it wasn't that she didn't want to do it. She was actually just nervous about it, thought that she couldn't catch the ball. So I switched spots with another mentee, talked to her about how to catch it. Then after that, she was perfectly fine. So just continue that, and then always make sure they know that, if something doesn't work for them, let me know, because the whole point of this is, you get in the habit of asking. It's not always going to be yes, but it'll always be no if you don't open your mouth.
Yeah. So many good points there, and thank you again for sharing. So, right, we talked about earlier this need to be mindful of when a mentee doesn't engage, maybe in what might be a failed attempt at activity, and being curious enough to find out about, how they play and when they might feel nervous, and due to your relationship, right, she was able to say, and you were able to modify to make sure that she was included. So again, not falling into a trap where like suddenly something didn't work and then we never try it again, but that we can adapt and make it work and make sure that everyone's included. And then I'm sure over the course of playing the game, she got more confident and things like that, which is this other side, is that play can be super validating when a young person is able to engage in it successfully. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Any other thoughts about how you're going to do it, or be more intentional about it if you're already doing it, and what will be success for you when it comes to fun and play in your mentoring relationships?
I think something that's always worked for me is using my own experience as a youth who has received mentoring services. Like how when you asked us the questions earlier about if we've received play, what did we like to do when we were younger? And it
Yeah.
just brought back to me how those mentor relationships, how it created a lasting memory for me. And it was through play, like connecting. So for me, just using that blueprint and remembering that everything doesn't have to be serious, it doesn't have to be perfect. And connecting with your youth through their likes or their interests or hobbies is one way for us to not only spark the light in them, but make them feel seen. And
Yeah, so true. And I appreciate you sharing, right? Right. This is an opportunity to do some more of that reflection. And I'm glad that that worked for you guys to take some best practices and things like that. And what I'll say is that if you do read this chapter, the writer ends talking about a story with his mentee, and they were in a very structured, goal-oriented, I believe academic-based program. So they had done plenty of academic-based activities, and towards, when the relationship was going through closure, he asked, what was your favorite part, of being in the program? And he said, when you made me laugh, right? And he's like, all the activities we did, like that is what was most memorable. And it was like, yeah, that you were funny and that you made me laugh. So again, the opportunity for play ended up being the vehicle of which these other goals were accomplished. And it wasn't that none of that was meaningful. That the mentee wasn't like, I loved going to the science fair or whatever, right? But what's memorable and meaningful and helped build that bridge was something that was playful and fun. And again, this is why we say it's the most powerful tool in the mentor toolkit. Awesome. So if you do read the chapter, there are additional reading resources in there, some great books that I've not read, but now I think I might. So again, some books focused on helping adults bring play into relationships with youth, and then books and some more over here as well. So encourage you. The goal of any of our trainings is to encourage you to learn more. So, hope you may take that opportunity. And then, yes, thank you so much for being here. What we have here is our training evaluation, so please complete that. You'll receive it via email as well. But we appreciate you so much for being here, for celebrating National Mentoring Month, and hopefully, now kicking off the year with a lot of fun and play in mind. So I'll stay on so you guys can access that link. Let me know if you have any issues. Again, you will get the recording and slides and anything related to badges by January 24th. So keep an eye on your email, subscribe to our YouTube so you never miss one of our training recordings. And we hope you will continue to be in touch with us. But thank you so much for being here. And we really appreciate you guys being a part of our learning network.